Hi, this is Libby again. This is another video on Kent Hovind. It's my second video in a series. And this one I'm entitling The Boy, the Bully, and Dr. Dino. In video 1 of this series, I shared with you the moment upon which I heard mention of the name Kent Hovind. It was, like I shared, approximately 1 month ago while listening to a Hagman and Hagman radio interview with Steve Quayle. In this video today, I'm going to fast forward to this present day, March 12, 2015, the final moments as Kent Hovind awaits the verdict of his new charges of contempt and mail fraud. In the Bible, Mark 8:27, Jesus went out along with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he questioned his disciples, saying to them, "Who do people say that I am?" They told him, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, but others, one of the prophets." And I ask today, who do you say Kent Hovind is? Some would say a tax cheat. Others would say a mighty man used of God. The day I attended the trial of Kent Hovind on March 9th, 2015, it was a Monday, there was a little boy, about age 11, sitting in the courtroom with his mom. During a recess, I befriended her and asked where she was from. She said, "We are from Louisiana." We instantly had that in common. She went on to say, "My son loved learning and watching Dr. Dino videos and reading books." She said, "Several years ago, when my family traveled to Pensacola one year on vacation, my son wanted to go visit Dinosaur Adventureland, so they went. When they arrived, it was closed down. Her son asked, 'Why is it closed?' And she replied, 'I don't know, son.'" She went on to say that moment sparked something inside her son that refused to be extinguished. The mom shared with me, "That is why we are here. My son wanted to come to support Kent Hovind, Dr. Dino, at his trial. From the mouth of babes is why this mother traveled with her son from Louisiana on rainy roads to Pensacola to the courthouse at 1 North Palafox Street, courtroom number 5, with Judge Margaret Casey Rogers presiding. He simply wanted to know more about this man, Kent Hovind, affectionately known as Dr. Dino. Dr. Dino's teaching material sparked a passion in this young man, which caused a greater thirst to know more about science and learning in his young heart. I sat there in courtroom number 5 and wondered what was going through his little mind as he sat there and watched the proceedings. Did I mention there were other children in attendance as well? Yes, there were. Could they comprehend what adults were also struggling to comprehend as to what was Dr. Dino being accused of? At times, Dr. Dino would turn his head and greet those with an appreciative smile for their attendance and support from the defense table. At the opposite table, the prosecutor's table, sat the prosecuting attorneys as they flanked their key witness, a senior IRS agent. At times, they would smile too, or was it a smirk? There was much movement and shuffling around their table. Very large binders that held large volumes of paper neatly inserted into page protectors, which had been precisely categorized, covered the table. Colorful sticky notes flagged important pages that led them to their prize accusatory evidence. Constant motion existed with the opening and closing of these big books, even during Dr. Dino's testimony. The prosecutor's chair swiveled rapidly back and forth between the main table and the extra table behind their chairs that held more of the large books. Periodic shouts of "Objection!" rang forth, coupled with angry, distorted, and twisted facial features as hair flew as it was tossed back and forth and flipped away from the face. Anger, much anger, seethed to the surface, invoked by the testimony of Dr. Dino. With such focus, to shoot down every word of his testimony left all present wondering if there was true comprehension of what Dr. Dino was trying to convey. When Dr. Dino spoke, the whole atmosphere changed. People smiled, even people in the jury. For a moment in time, you could hear a pin drop as everyone listened intently before suddenly jolted back to the sad reality of where we were with the shout, "Objection!" One must ask and wonder, where did the hatred for Dr. Dino come from? The only thing missing seemed to be saliva, dripping from fangs as a wolf would approach a lamb. What a sad scene to observe, and one could only feel sorry for all involved, while many sat silently in prayer. Yes, this supposedly was a room that held great knowledge, but also many a seared heart. The prosecuting team was obviously a product, a work of art, from years of Ivy League schooling and education that was flaunted with great importance as the education level of the defendants were questioned and demeaned. The obvious opinion conveyed was their education was of a lesser level, and their self-education and passion to study law, the Constitution, and the Bible was of lesser value and should not impress others. After all, just look at all the big books compiled with their neatly organized and cataloged alphanumeric numbers that gave each piece of paper an implied preeminent authority and power. These papers seem to be more important than the life of Dr. Dino, his family, his possessions, and his years of biblical teaching and evangelism. They seemed more valuable as they were flaunted and displayed on big, bright screens, which consumed the majority of the time in the courtroom. How long and at what price did it take to put together those big books against Dr. Dino? One would suppose since before the first trial, approximately 10 years prior. Makes one wonder who actually is imprisoned. Some self-made prisons without bars can be even worse. Was there a goal? A big reward if Dr. Dino was nailed? After all, a local Christian college which was adjacent to Dr. Dino Adventureland turned him in to the IRS as was testified. From that point, the big chunk of dinosaur meat was quickly consumed down to the bones. One might say it was all for justice. Really? Does justice look like that? In Jesus' day, Judas was motivated by and rewarded 30 pieces of silver. Though Dr. Dino was accused repeatedly of greed, one must also wonder, was it Dr. Dino who would volunteer for speaking engagements and freely give out his uncopyrighted materials? Or was this implied greed coming from another source? Watching the proceedings, one couldn't help but wonder, are all men held to the same accountability of law or just some? In Dinesh D'Souza's case, Dinesh pointed out that any individual could be accused of breaking the law because the laws, especially the IRS tax laws, have become so convoluted and complicated that none of us could, quote unquote, pass their test of complete innocence. That's my quote, pass their test. So viewing all of this from the perspective of an 11-year-old boy, one should ponder, what did he walk away with? I can't answer for him. I can't answer for others that I can't answer for others that experienced the inner workings of Courtroom 5 at 1 North Palafox Street in Pensacola, Florida. I can speak for myself, however. I was forever changed. I, like that little boy discovering that Dinosaur Adventureland was closed, have had a spark lit in my spirit that is unquenchable. You see, this was my first in-person experience as well of a criminal court proceeding. The footprint left from the trial of Dr. Dino will forever be embedded on my heart and mind, just as it will be that little boy's. So this was our criminal justice system at work. Don't get me wrong. As many point out, at least Dr. Dino had an opportunity to give some of his testimony, though he was limited, before a jury. But the scales of justice seemed tilted when viewing the defendant without resources or bare minimum resources, and then viewing the government's prosecution team with unlimited resources. Looking at that from a child's perspective, it would be viewed as facing a bully. But make no mistake, in the presence of a bully, one must always be on guard and ever alert. The presence of a bully creates a great awakening. Good day.